Welcome to the Engineering Change Podcast, your intersection between engineering, politics, and leadership. This week I'm flying solo. Sully couldn't be here, and that makes me sad, but we'll get through it together, folks. Joining me today, though, is Julie Secrist. Julie, welcome to the Engineering Change Podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you. We're here today to talk about the ASCE's Georgia Infrastructure Report Card.
Yes.
Did I get that all right in the right order?
Yes.
Okay, good.
That's right.
And so first, tell us a little about yourself and how you're connected with ASCE, and then we'll talk a little bit about the report card itself.
Okay. So yes, I'm Julie Secrist, past president of ASCE Georgia, and I'm also the co-chair for the 2024 Infrastructure Report Card. I've been involved with ASCE Georgia for about 20 years.
Oh, wow.
It's been a long, fun time that I've had with ASCE, and it started when I was in college.
Cool.
So yes, and been on the board for about 11 years, and I just finished up my past president role. So I'm officially off the board, but will be remaining involved with the section. And I'm also involved on the national level as well. And ASCE is an international organization.
Okay.
It's American Society of Civil Engineers. And we are interested in promoting the profession of civil engineering.
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of outreach to students and, including K through 12 and college students, just to encourage those students to go into engineering, and also, just outreach into the community to promote the profession of engineering.
That's really cool. I know that I think Georgia Tech and Kennesaw State both have ASCE chapters, and when we're working with them through our STEM workforce task force, we interact a lot with them. So that's really cool
Yes.
that you have been on that journey since you were in college.
Yes.
And past president, and now staying involved. That's really cool.
Yes. And we also have student chapters at UGA and Georgia Southern and Savannah State and Mercer.
Nice.
Yes.
Fantastic. So let's hear a little bit about the report card, because it's something that I've kind of heard about since I started at ACEC Georgia. And does it come out biannually, or how often does it come out?
It's actually only every 5 years.
Every 5 years. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's on
a lot
schedule.
Of work for every
it
2
is.
years.
Exactly. It takes a lot of work. It's about a year to a year and a half of work. We have about 60 experts, civil engineering experts, that volunteer for this effort. And so it takes a long time to pull this together. And that year and a half of effort is a lot of gathering data. We work with all the different agencies in the state to gather that data from. We do a lot of analysis, and we also go back and forth with ASCE National on a lot of the grades and analysis to make sure that the way that we're analyzing this data is kind of in line with the way that the other states are analyzing their data and how national also analyzes the national data.
So it's not just in a vacuum. It's
correct.
The scores for Georgia you can compare that to the scores for Alabama, and we're playing on the same playing field.
That's right.
That's really cool.
Yes.
Really cool.
And on that note, we actually are tied for the highest grade, the overall grade, with the state of Utah.
Oh.
And since we're a coastal state, it's actually considered harder to have good infrastructure in a coastal state. So you could actually say that we have the highest grade
in the
country. We won.
Yeah. We're the winners.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
Yes.
So every 5 years, I know when it came out, I was seeing in my newsfeed, because of my job, engineers rate Georgia C+, and over and over and over again. And I have a feeling that a lot of those were just copying the same story from site to site. But
that's right.
It seems like some news sources made C+ out to be a bad thing.
Right. They like to do that.
But it's not necessarily a bad thing from what you're saying.
It's not. And so we have an official way that we like to say what that means. So when we say a C+, what that means to us at ASCE is that it means our infrastructure is in better than average condition, and it is functioning well, but it does still require attention. And it's also 2 points ahead of the national score, which is C-.
Okay.
So that's where we are. And really,
That's really good.
A's don't exist in infrastructure, because that basically means it's perfect and funding is there and nothing needs to be done to it.
That's not the world we live in.
Exactly. That doesn't happen. So C+ is good. And like I mentioned, we do have the highest in the country, tied with Utah. So we do have a lot to be proud of here in Georgia, but we do have a lot to work on as well.
Right, which I mean, at the ACEC Georgia Transportation Summit, we have all the heads of state transportation and transit, and I think they all agree with you in every single one of their addresses last year that there's still a lot. In fact, Janine Miller, that was her whole talk, I think, was talking about the infrastructure investment that we still need.
Absolutely.
So on Georgia's scorecard, where do we see the most room for improvement?
So our best room for improvement is with transit. We got the lowest grade in transit of D- and D. And that is because of funding. We don't have a dedicated funding for transit. It's left largely to the local government, and that doesn't work well. And so that's one of our biggest points for raising the grade, is to have a dedicated statewide funding for transit.
So when I hear transit, because I'm in the metropolitan Atlanta area, I think MARTA. So that D isn't saying anything negative against MARTA or Collie Greenwood. It's saying statewide. There's room for improvement here.
That's right. I mean, MARTA does play into that, of course, but it is talking about a statewide funding. And so we want, bus rapid transit. We want light rail. We want those communities that are outside of even the metro Atlanta area to have access to transit.
That makes sense. So one of the better scores, in fact, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was the best score, was energy infrastructure.
Yes, that is correct.
It got a B, which is an improvement from previous years. What? Tell us about that if you can.
Yes. So for energy, there's a lot of really good things going on with energy. One of the best things that we have is some of the lowest user rates in the country. Alongside of that, we have some of the highest reliability rates in the country. And we are spending some of the highest amounts in the country. So when you kind of add all of that together, you get some really high grades. Now, we did have there was some contentious discussions on this grade with National, because they didn't want us to give our grade this high. And, they might not like that we talk openly about this.
Right.
But I think it needs to be discussed, because we really are proud of what we're doing here in Georgia on the energy front. And I think that it needs to be acknowledged what we're doing here. And we really fought with National to keep this grade a B. And we almost dropped the whole chapter from our report card. If they were not going to let us keep the grade as a B, because we wanted to show our lawmakers that we appreciate what's being done and what has been done in the last 5 years, and that we need to keep doing that. And so we felt that if we lower that grade, then that doesn't show that appreciation, and that then we're we could potentially lose that funding, or they could think that what they've been doing isn't working or is not being appreciated.
Yeah, and I would imagine that the energy sector is a big draw for businesses moving to the state, our reliable, cheap energy.
Absolutely.
And so we should be proud of that, because it's drawing more and more economic growth to the state.
Absolutely.
And that's awesome that you guys fought for that. And won.
Yes, we did win. Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about water infrastructure. the rising costs associated with water systems. What are the main challenges Georgia faces in maintaining and upgrading its drinking waters?
Yes. So with water, there's two big challenges with that, and that's all of our water. It's stormwater, wastewater, drinking water. So we've got major population growth happening everywhere, and that's coupled with lower than average user rates. And so you put both of those conditions together, we just don't have enough money to both expand where we need to and maintain where we need to.
I mean, and we're recording this not too long after Atlanta had several major lines break, and people were out of water for a few days.
Yeah. I think it was a week in some places. Yeah.
And that was just due to aging pipes. That ended up being the reason.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. So, how? I don't know if you can speak to this or not because you are not a wastewater engineer. But what are some things that Georgia needs to improve that throughout the coming years, the next 5 years, to get a better score?
One of the things that we are proposing is higher user rates, which we know we don't like to hear that, right? Because
people
we all,
like that.
We all picture our taxes going up, but we need funding for it, and so higher user rates are going to pay for those maintenance costs that we need. And some of these water pipes haven't been replaced or maintained since they were installed 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And so it's time, and that's one of the infrastructures that have just been ignored for so long. So
out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. Yep.
Wow. So let's pivot to bridges and roads. The report notes that 98% of Georgia's bridges are in fair or good condition. That seems like good things.
Yes.
That's GDOT's doing their thing. What specific measures have been taken to achieve this, and how does Georgia's road infrastructure compare to other states?
Yes. So something really good that has happened was the 2015 Transportation Funding Act and a gas tax that came from that, which has really helped fund the bridges and the roads in the state. So we need to keep that going. We need that gas tax to continue because that's helped with the bridges and the roads. And our roads are currently ranked sixth best in the nation.
That's great.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Yes. So our roads are really good, and which is probably surprising to a lot of people, especially here in Metro Atlanta with the potholes, and it's might not seem great on all days.
But if you ever drive in like Chicago area, our roads are far
they're
superior.
good.
Yeah,
yes.
They're good. You're not losing the bottom of your car.
Right. Exactly.
So with the governor just announced additional infrastructure spending, fair amount going through GDOT. How's that going to affect our grade, do you think, for the next year?
Yeah, it could go up. It could go up again. Our overall grade did not go up this time because we did have some grades that lowered. We actually stayed the same overall. But of course, our goal is to have our grade go up. We would love that. And so overall, that is what we need, is more funding. And if we get more funding in some of these areas, then we will go up. And that would, our goal is to provide a safer, better quality of life for our citizens here in Georgia, attract more big companies, and then that will support the population growth that's happening and just kind of keep the good times rolling that we have here in Georgia right now.
That's awesome. Well, that's an interesting point too, because I feel like sometimes I've heard stories, right, of politicians or appointed officials, elected officials, seeing the grade and kind of being irritated maybe at it, taking it out of context.
Right.
First of all, it's the second highest grade, or as you said, for a coastal state, really the highest grade in the country. And it's not criticizing anything.
No.
It's really reporting on the good stuff and then listing the room for improvement.
Right.
So how can agencies and elected officials use this report to do better?
Right. And that's a really good point. This really isn't to criticize any particular agency or person or anything. it's really a tool because if you read the whole 115-page report, we really dig into the details of...
You do. I tried reading the 100. So I'll report on myself. I didn't make it through all 115 pages.
Yeah, it's a good bedtime you're reading. But it gets very specific on, in each of these infrastructures, here's what's going really well, here's what needs more attention, and it's not personal. It's just, here are the different criteria that we looked at, and here's what's good, here's what's bad. And so it's really a tool that it can use to put funding where it needs to be, and it's written on in language that is digestible by anyone. And
I was surprised by that.
Yeah, and we do that on purpose. We don't want people to not be able to read it. You don't have to be an engineer to read it and understand it. And the whole point is that we want the public and we want the lawmakers who come from any kind of background to be able to use it as a tool.
That's really cool. Say somebody wants to learn more about the report and maybe try to broach its 115 pages. Where can they find that?
So you can go to infrastructurereportcard.org, and you can find the national report card and the Georgia report card and any other state report card on that website.
Now, do all 50 states have a report card, or
not all 50 are doing them yet? It is a goal to get them all there. We've only been doing them. This is only our fourth report card. So we just started in 2009 was our first one.
Okay. Well, that's great though.
Yeah.
That's great though. So this is it for 5 years. You said about a year and a half before the report card gets released, that's when the work really starts happening?
Yes.
That's really cool.
Yes. So we're very pleased to have this one out and published, and we've got a few years before we ramp back up again.
Now for the future, with Georgia's population, business growth rapidly expanding more and more, it seems like every day. Do you think the infrastructure is ready to support and sustain that growth as it is right now?
Well, that's one of the key criteria that we analyze these on is future growth. And so
the higher the grade, the more ready
exactly
that area is.
Exactly. And we take that very seriously, especially here in Georgia, because we are growing so quickly. So the grades do reflect that. And, and like water, like those water systems that we were saying, those are behind in that future ready growth. Transportation, our roads, our bridges, those are energy, especially, they're further ahead in being ready for the future.
Nice. Public-private investments, what role do they play in addressing Georgia's infrastructure needs? Are there any notable success stories or ongoing projects that you can think of?
Yeah, absolutely. And those can be big game changers for us here in Georgia. Georgia Power is obviously one. Norfolk Southern with rail. Rail is becoming so huge for us with the Port Authority, and then the airlines. Ms. Major with Hartsfield-Jackson, all of our smaller airports. We're becoming such a major transportation hub. So and I think it's just going to become even more of a game changer for us, is having those public-private partnerships.
Very good. How is Georgia addressing environmental resilience in its infrastructure planning, particularly extreme weather events? We hear about those more and more and more now. So how is that reflected?
And that's something that, being a coastal state, that plays into that, and why it is considered to be more difficult, because we do have those extreme weather events to consider. And so energy is definitely one that plays into that, and having outages and flooding conditions or freezing conditions. Taking the electric lines underground is a big thing. In flooding, we need our stormwater to be able to operate. Get the water off the roads, things like that. And then sustainability is something that is one of our key criteria that we look at in all of these, in all of our 14 different chapters. So it is definitely something that we look at and we consider, and it's reflected in all of the grades.
Nice. And if you're listening, Georgia Power, I would love the lines in my neighborhood to be put underground. I don't know if I can make special requests like that, but I just did. How does ASCE engage with the public and lawmakers to raise awareness and secure funding for infrastructure improvements?
That's a great question, and it's something that we want to do more of all the time, because that, it doesn't do us any good to put in all this work and write this report and then it just exactly. Yeah. So we had the release event at the Capitol earlier this month, and now we've got 5 years till the next one that this will be live, and so we plan to have some more events. We have a key alert on through ASCE, which if you're a member of ASCE, you should get those in your email, and you can click a button and it will automatically go to your representatives.
Oh, cool.
And it's already pre-populated. It basically just sends them an email alerting them that the report card has been completed. Here it is. It directs them to the website.
Very good.
So we'll do that. We'll do some other events. We definitely want to get the word out. So however we can do that, we're going to do it. We sent out the press release, and we're going to keep pushing it.
That sounds great. Julie, thanks for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much.
This was really great, and look forward to hearing the grades in 5 years.
Yes.
Hopefully Engineering Change will still be around in 5 years.
Yes.
Well, folks, if you want to learn more about the infrastructure report card, you can go to, correct me if I'm wrong, infrastructurereportcard.com?
.org.
.org. I was so close.
So close.
Infrastructurereportcard.org. You can download and read all 115 pages, 14 different subsections, and learn all about infrastructure in Georgia. Again, I just want to point out that Georgia is number one. We're just going to say number one.
We're tied for number one, but we're coastal, so we are number one. Yes.
And that's amazing, and that's a story you don't necessarily hear if you're just looking at that C+ headline.
That's right.
And that's really cool.
Yes.
So spread the word. Georgia's number one. And join us next time on the next episode of Engineering Change Podcast. See you next time.
Thanks.
Intro and closing music. Intention by the Down and Outs. Music used with permission. Engineering Change is a production of ACEC Georgia. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved.